became a chant as they walked, pulling their child between them, his feet dragging on the ground. In order to get to the exit gate, they had to pass the bench where the man sat sprawling again. He was careful not to look at him. With all the dignity she could summon, she pulled Larry's sandy, perspiring little hand, while Morden pulled the other. Slowly, and with head high, she walked with her husband and child out of the playground. Her first feeling was one of relief, that a fight had been avoided, that no one was hurt. Yet beneath it there was a layer of something else, something heavy and inescapable. She sensed that it was more than just an unpleasant incident, more than defeat of reason by force. She felt dimly it had something to do with her and Morden, something acutely personal, familiar, and important.
You go right ahead, Joe. Throw all you want. This here is a public sandbox.
She felt a sudden weakness in her knees as she glanced at Morden. He had become aware of what was happening. He put his Times down carefully on his lap and turned his fine, lean face towards the man. When he spoke to the man, it was with his usual reasonableness.
You're quite right, but just because this is a public place...
The man lowered his funnies and looked at Morden, from head to foot, slowly and deliberately.
Yeah? My kid's got just as good as a right here as yours, and if he feels like throwing sand, he'll throw it. And if you don't like it, you can take your kid the hell out of here.
The children were listening. Their eyes and mouths were wide open, their spades forgotten in small fists. She noticed the muscle in Morden's jaw tighten. He was rarely angry, and he seldom lost his temper. She was suffused with tenderness for her husband and an important rage against the man for involving him in a situation so alien and so distasteful for him.
Now, just a minute. You must realize...
Oh, shut up!
Her heart began to pound. Morden half rose. The Time slid to the ground. Slowly, the other man stood up. He took a couple of steps toward Morden, then stopped. He flexed his great arms, waiting.
Would there be violence? Fighting? How dreadful, how incredible.
She must do something.
Stop them? Call for help?
She wanted to put her hand on her husband's sleeve, to pull him down, but for some reason she didn't. He was very pale.
This is ridiculous. I must ask you...
Oh, yeah?
He stood with his legs spread apart, rocking a little, looking at Morden with utter scorn.
You and who else?
It wouldn't have proved anything.
What?
A fight. I wouldn't have proved anything beyond the fact that he's bigger than I am.
Of course.
The only possible outcome would have been, what, my glasses broken, perhaps a tooth or two replaced, a couple of days of work missed. And for what? For justice? For truth?
Of course.
She quickened her step. She wanted only to get home and to busy herself with her familiar tasks. Perhaps then the feeling, glued like heavy plasters on her heart, would be gone.
Of all the stupid, despicable bullies,
She thought, pulling harder on Larry's hand. The child was still crying. Always before, she had felt a tender pity for his defenseless little body. The frail arms, the narrow shoulders with sharp, wing-like shoulder blades, the thin and unsure legs, but now her mouth tightened in resentment.
Stop crying. I'm ashamed of you.
She felt as if all three of them were tracking mud along the street. The child cried louder.
If there had been an issue involved, if there had been something to fight for. But what else could he possibly have done? Allow himself to be beaten? Attempt to educate the man? Call a policeman? Officer, there's a man in the park who won't stop his child from throwing sand on mine.
The whole thing was silly as that, and not worth thinking about.
Can't you keep him quiet for Pete's sake?
What do you suppose I've been trying to do?
If you can't discipline this child, I will.
Morden snapped, making a move toward the boy. But her voice stopped him. She was shocked to hear it, thin and cold and penetrating with contempt.
Indeed,
She heard herself say.
you and who else?